Senate Bill 310 and what's gone on in the state of Ohio since we passed this terrible legislation last year. As Paul said, I was a state representative for 8 years, from 2006 to last December 2015. Because of term limits, folks can't run again after 8 years in one house. So I couldn't run again. I represented the 14th House District, which is in the west side of Cleveland, 120,000 people, one of 99 members of the Ohio House. When I came into the General Assembly back in 2006, there was some optimism. There was a more progressive bent, I think, in the state. I'm a Democrat, a very liberal Democrat. In 2008, we were able to kind of take control of the Ohio House of Representatives. Governor Strickland was elected in 2006. We thought that there was some kind of movement to kind of have a more kind of rational, sensible kind of legislature. We got our butts kicked in 2010. Ever since then, it's been pretty rotten place to work at. But when I came in, especially in 2006, 2007, especially in environmental legislation, there were some good things happening. We passed Senate Bill 221, which created our Renewable portfolio standard in the state of Ohio, which basically said that by the year 2025, 25% of our electricity generation had to come from renewable or alternative resources, and that there was a corresponding energy efficiency component to that too, so that we had to both create more energy by renewable resources and reduce the overall amount of electricity through energy efficiency measures. And Ohio was kind of at the forefront of states passing RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard legislation across the country. And we thought ours was actually fairly strong, fairly good, fairly progressive. When I left the General Assembly last year, in 2014, that legislation had completely been gutted. So Republicans and some Democrats passed Senate Bill 310, which is across the country probably it was absolutely the worst piece of legislation that I ever voted on or had to vote on in my 8 years in the General Assembly. I think it's been routinely excoriated across both the state and the country as being regressive, succumbing to kind of the worst elements of the worst elements of the utility industry, and has really had negative effects on energy and clean energy production in the state of Ohio. Just a couple things I just wanted to talk about was, so the RPS had, we had a solar set aside inside the renewable portion of the bill, and basically, but most of the generation was probably coming from wind generation. And then we had this big energy efficiency component to it as well. Since Senate Bill 310 was passed, there was probably at least about $2 billion worth of electricity that was going to be produced by wind farms in the state of Ohio, especially western Ohio. Some rural areas has some ripe territory, ripe geography for wind generation. We had a thing called the Ohio Power Siting Board. These projects were in front of the Ohio Power Siting Board. They were set to be voted on. When Senate Bill 310 passed, those things were stalled. They were cut off. We could not. The state of Ohio basically said they were not sure what's going to happen because there was another component of a corresponding bill that basically said in wind farms had setback requirements so that you had one windmill here, one windmill here. They had to be about 300, 400 feet away from each other. One of the components of kind of this couple pieces of legislation, which was not in 310, but was kind of corresponding to 310, was that set aside went to 1,200 feet, basically. So anyone who's investing in windmills or wind farms in the state of Ohio all of a sudden saw that their ability to put up wind farms had just been detrimentally kind of affected because you can put in 600 windmills on maybe 10, 15 acres. Now you can only put up 200 windmills, right? So the amount of electricity you can generate from wind farms had dramatically and drastically been reduced. So over $2 billion worth of investment in the wind energy industry has been on hold. Solar panels, so there's the solar component. We both make solar panels in Ohio at First Solar in the Toledo area, but there were solar companies that were kind of ramping up, starting to do business. We had a couple in the Cleveland area, Dovetail Solar, which is based out of Athens, but has a franchise up here in Chagrin Falls, and a couple other folks. There were a lot of kind of wind solar panel developers in the state. All of those, everyone I've talked to said that they've had to lay people off. They have quit doing business in the state of Ohio for the most part. Any business they are doing, new business, is out of state and can go on to other places. They can't survive in Ohio. And then in energy efficiency. So we've drastically reduced our ability to do energy efficiency because of Senate Bill 310. First Energy, which is our utility up here, which was just the worst corporate player in the history of utilities, it seems to me, in the United States, has cut all of their energy efficiency programs. Energy efficiency programs are very effective. For every $1 worth of energy efficiency projects you put in, you get $2 worth of benefits. Plus, people doing energy efficiency work are necessarily local, right? So you're doing energy lighting retrofits or HVAC systems. You can't offshore that to China. That's the folks that are going to be doing that work in the Cleveland area. All of that stuff is plummeted in terms of the ability to do that work. So Senate Bill 310 was devastating. There is, right now there's this Energy Mandate Study Committee that's coming out probably in the next week or so with recommendations of where to go forward. What I hear is that the recommendations are going to be that they're going to keep this freeze, that basically Senate Bill 310 froze the standards that where they were at in 2014. They're going to keep this freeze going forward into the future. At a time when we should be increasing our reliance on clean and renewable energies, we're going to be basically freezing our ability to do so and putting no resources into kind of clean energy development in the state of Ohio. So I've got my top sign. I would say that, can I just say one other thing? I'm sorry. So under Senate Bill 310, there was a lot of work to fight it. And there really was a lot of work to fight it. And there was a lot of very good people who came down and testified in committees and made their voices heard. That didn't matter. The problem is that didn't matter. And we got our butts kicked up on this bill. And I think that to me, there was a lot of pleasant people who made a lot of very logical comments. There was no anger shown about the detrimental effect that would happen to Senate Bill 310. And I think that one thing that this kind of movement needs is some anger and some, just kind of, picking people off and really embarrassing folks for the irrational behavior that's taking place with a lot of elected officials. So, that's all I'll leave it.
A couple of things I would like to follow up with what Mike presented is Ohio was the only state in the country that successfully repealed renewable energy standards. Several states have tried, even states like extremely conservative Kansas tried, but at the last minute enough people had voted in favor to keep renewable energy standards. So we are like the poster child for freezing and repealing renewable energy standards. And First Energy, the organization, the utility that was largely behind this repeal and subsequent freeze, has since asked the state PUCO essentially for a bailout. They managed to freeze these renewable energy standards, and then they came around just this year, and or late last year, early this year, and asked for electric to be re-regulated in the state of Ohio so that they're uncompetitive competitive plants, power plants. They have one coal burning plant, I want to say Samuels. Samus plant and the Davis Besson plant, so that these plants can stay online and keep operational because they don't want to mothball them. And so this is another thing that members of CLEAN have been involved in as well, as testifying in front of the PUCO at their various hearings this year about why First Energy should not get their way. And there have been victories on this front with AEP, and, which is American Electric Power, and Duke Energy, where the PUCO denied similar applications. First Energy's application is still in the mix with the PUCO. I think hearings are going on now. So just something to be aware of as far as possible inroad of how could you get involved. At this point, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you have of the panel.
Yes. Ms. Jones, you were talking about a pipeline going through Medina County. You also mentioned Lorraine County. When you started, I thought you were talking about the pipeline that went north and south, but it sounds as like it's going east and west. Then you went west to Lorraine County from Medina.
And then it's going up through Fulton County, up through Michigan to Ontario, so that liquid natural gas pipeline that's taking the frack gas from Ohio will go to be sold overseas, and they get money from the Texas Corporation and their shareholders, while it destroys all the counties and properties involved in the meantime, and we have no say.
So this is that diversion from the XL that went across?
No, this is a separate pipeline.
Oh, this is separate?
Yeah, and just so you know, we know in Medina County, this is like the first of pipelines. Fulton County now has like 3 other pipelines, 4 other pipelines going through there now. They're not going to stop with one pipeline.
Right.
And it's going to happen everywhere, so.
You got a website we can get that data
Yeah,
from?
Sustainable Medina County, all one word, .org.
You have something with data on?
Yes, with all the information on it,
No
the
problem.
maps, everything.
Okay.
I just want to say one of the things you said, Ms. Foley, in regard to getting mad. I don't know if anybody else has seen the ads. Sierra Club is actually doing ads against Portman, asking the people to call and tell him to vote for the clean energy because he's been known to vote against it. Has anybody else seen the ads?
Are they television?
On television.
Yeah, I see the
By
national.
Sierra Club.
Yeah, I see the national.
Right, and that's fantastic. I think that what we need to do, especially when it comes voting time, I think we need to have commercials that have a whole list of people who voted for SB 10 and put it on, whether we go through Sierra Club, because we don't have funding, but a list of these people so that everybody knows that who's voting against us,
Can I say one thing? And that's good what you're saying to do, but our commissioners kept saying, well, our hands are tied, we can't do anything. We said,
Right.
well, this Bill of Rights will give you home rule back and so forth.
Right.
Our township trustees, the same thing. So then I went to Mr. Houston's speech in Columbus a few
Right.
weeks ago, and he said, you people, what you need to do is go to your legislators and have them change the law, or else do a state of Ohio charter. And just to let you know, when Mr. Batchelder was Speaker of the House for Ohio, unfortunately he comes from Medina County, and don't get me wrong, not everybody in Medina County thinks he's God like some people do, but he purposely, like any of the fracking issues or any of the bills, like one of the reps is David Hahn, another one's Larry Oboff, he would purposely not let them get voted on, not vote up, so they would stand, so they never went anywhere. So if you're going to try to deal with elected officials, I don't have any faith in them. That's why.
Oh, I'm not saying to have faith in what they do, I'm saying expose them and tell the people, by the way, you know, moms and dads and everybody, these people voted for a bad environment for your children and future grandchildren in this state, just so you know, when you're voting.
And I hope that will work, because just one other thing, we had one of our county commissioners, the one that lied about all this, he was up for election in November, okay? And I told people, you know, here's where your power is. You have the power to vote. You know that he is for the pipeline. They think it's the best thing ever. They want the pipeline in Medina County. So you have a choice to vote for someone who doesn't think it's good, or you can, no. Well, we had people having their property, no Nexus pipeline, and right next to it, they have vote for Commissioner Friedrich, who wants the pipeline. It made no sense. They voted him in, and now they're mad. And they kept saying, well, we can get Renee to go against it. We can get them because we'll educate them. He'll know. And now they've seen it, but it's too late.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. Next year, Rob Corcoran does have an opponent. Make sure he doesn't get in.
Exactly.
All right.
That's
There is
right.
something you can physically do
Right.
for that man to not take that office
Absolutely.
again. Make sure you on that team that puts that man out of office. It's
I
just
will.
that simple. Physically work against it.
So contribute to his opponent.
Right. Well,
Can I,
whatever it takes, put him out.
So can I just, I agree with you, but let me tell you, as a politician, as someone who's, you know, ran for office, and here's, you know, I sit in the caucuses, you know, we've got a Democratic caucus, a Republican caucus, and you go in and you meet, and prior to we meet every, like an hour before session, and we night caucuses where we all get together and talk about stuff. And before their kind of formal meeting starts, people mill around, they talk to each other, what's going on, how's it going? Here's what politicians hate, they hate being embarrassed, right? They hate the fact that someone ran, you know, my God, you don't know what those guys are doing to me over here on education. They're killing me on education, right? Or they're killing me on, you know, the business community is killing me over here. So part of it is I hate to say this, but it's, you know, being a little mean, being embarrassing people, and picking off a couple people, so they have to go back in the caucus every once in a while and say, man, I'm getting killed by the environmental community over here. Don't make me vote on this, right? Or so they have to go to their leadership. Don't make me have to vote on this terrible bill that I'm going to get killed on in my community. Part of it is I hate to say this, is the negative consequences of doing bad things and making people fear kind of the power from the environmental community.
For Mr. Mike again, but I like what the efficiency standards do. I just wanted to hear more about what you think they do for the long run and the short run. Why they're picked on.
So, especially First Energy hated the efficiency standards because they're in the business of selling power, and because they also bought up a whole bunch of coal-fired power out of Pennsylvania. They bought Allegheny Power up. So. They hated that they were forced to help invest in energy efficiency measures, because that means they were selling less dirty fuel. So energy efficiency does two things. One is it helps, you know, places reduce their load, their energy load. Two, but it also reduces demand in terms of the whole grid. So as there's less demand for purchasing electricity, it lowers costs across the whole grid. Right? So that's why they hated the energy efficiency components of Senate Bill 221 and pushed to get rid of them, basically. And First Energy, you should know, has AP and Duke, which are the other two big electricity providers, have kept some of their energy efficiency programs. Basically, First Energy's got rid of all theirs.
And so it moves toward mothballing, it moves them toward mothballing, there's not needing quite as much energy.
Yeah, so what it does is it creates more demand for their dirty fuel sources of generation.
And then when they start oil and gas, right, then they'll maybe get into
Another question for Mike. Is there any way that the solar credits will be renewed on the federal level?
On the federal?
Yeah.
So right now there's a federal solar credit that expires at the end of December 2016. It's 30% of basically if you pay $100, you can get a 30% credit on your federal tax bill. if you're a for-profit, if you pay taxes, if you're a for-profit entity or private. It's unlikely, I think, given the state of Congress and Republican-controlled Congress, that federal credit is going to be renewed.
So individual action now?
Yes.
You know, again, and I know this is what we're all focused on, and what we're taught to focus on, and that's relying on our electeds to save us. But I don't know how many of you watched the first Republican debate or not. But Donald Trump, believe it or not, he pointed out to everyone exactly how it works. When he said, I write checks to everyone, and then when I get in, I call them up, whoever gets elected, and expect favors. And this is how the system works. So you can, you know, when I talk about people labeling sometimes in some of my talks, you know, you can talk conservative, liberal, Tea Party, Republican, that fragments all of us. Okay, so we don't focus on what our main issues are. In the Cuyahoga County race for, you know, county executive, Forest City Enterprises gave a check to Schron and gave a check to Bootish. Bowen and Associates gave a check to each. So their bases are covered. And how many of you, when you pick your candidate to represent your interests, are writing a check to the opposition? And Mike, you can probably address that more. Like, this is how the system works a lot of times. I mean, it's awful. So until we fix the system itself, we're going to wind up in the same boat.
And this is how it works in the law field too. Law firms do the same thing, and they give a check to each side, so whoever is elected, they can get business from that.
I don't think that it's necessarily a question of fixing the system. It's a question of getting representatives who represent what we want to have done, which means defeat the Republicans, have a Republican, Democratic Congress and a Democratic legislature and Democratic city councils. And I think all of the panelists should keep in mind that federal law replaces whatever state law is on the same subject. So the Affordable Care Act replaces whatever any state wants to do that's, you know, less favorable to the public. And also, state law, if it legislates on one topic, local law, municipal ordinances, and maybe even smaller subdivisions of government cannot pass a law that's contrary to the state law and have it survive. So what we need to do is to think in terms of doing the most, you know, getting to the highest level possible, getting to Congress, getting different people elected to Congress. I know you're saying that you know, even if they're Democrats, they're going to get money and they'll vote in the direction of getting the money. Well, we can organize clean, maybe can combine with other organizations to form a environmental lobby, which gives money to candidates.
I think there's people that do that already, and I think that what I think needs to happen, look, I think you have to do all of the above, right? So, but I think that there's got to be some effort to be angry, and I think C.L.E.A.N as an organization, is a, you know, kind of a local grassroots organization, has the ability to express its voice in a way that the Sierra Club or, you know, other folks may not have the ability to do that, and I think it's a, you know, almost an obligation or duty.
And I don't think it's a Democrat or Republican thing with the pipelines or anything like that. I mean, we've tried, okay, and we asked the Democratic Party to take a stand so that we would have a right to vote on our county charter with the Bill of Rights, because the signatures were certified, our prosecutors agreed to it, our Board of Elections, therefore it went to, our county commissioners told us we would do everything we can to make sure that it fails. And then they went and did a newsletter to all the residents of Medina County, or majority of them, telling them how to protest our initiative and the law and what to write and how to do that, which I think was an ethics violation, but, and so that's how we got protests going to the Secretary of State. We asked David Pepper, head of the Democratic Party in the area here, and just to even talk to our attorney about it, or talk to one of us about, you know, taking a stand to at least support that we had a right to vote on this initiative, because in the Bill of Rights it had, if anything was found unconstitutional or illegal after it passed, then it would be deleted from the Charter Bill of Rights and the rest of it would stand. David Pepper would even get back to even our attorney. I mean, and I talked to Nina Turner and I talked to the person under her, and she said, the communications director, and she said, well, we all decided that Democratic Party can't even touch this because we're afraid of what the Republicans will do, okay? And we're afraid of what the court will do.
Yeah,
Oil and gas energy is giving money to both sides.
But if you have Democrats in power, then they don't need to be afraid of the Republicans. I think it makes a big difference. And that's reflected in that what was it, Senate Bill 310. That was a Republican legislature with a Republican governor. If we
Democrats
have a
voted
Democratic
for it.
legislature and a Democratic governor, we may be able to get that
But
310 reversed.
you got a weak Democratic Party in the state of Ohio. They're not going to do anything that's already been demonstrated.
Yeah, but Dave,
the lady
This
Tish
gentleman
said,
asked a
Well,
question, and then
don't worry about them.
What's the alternative? Do we start a third party?
No, we
Yeah.
don't.
Oh, really? Back to Democrats.
It's the people passing laws in their own community is what
We're
that's
going to take
about.
control because
Okay.
those electeds work for us and they're not doing what we're asking them to do.
You have to remember state law, what you said about state law superseding, it was one state and federal law for people to own other people. I mean, just because a legislature passes a law doesn't mean it's a just or legitimate law.
Well, I agree with
Okay,
that.
so if
but
the
there-
people
but-
don't challenge it,
But there
it's
is,
somebody
but there is
else's
the
term.
the principle of the supremacy clause.
Butt kicked off.
Go ahead.
Okay, I got this for the state of Ohio is a corporation, but Ohio State is a republic, okay? Can't we go in, instead of fighting them on commercial law, we fight them on common law? I mean, that changes the whole dynamic. Like in Article 5, like in Article 5 commission versus taking them on the commercial law.
Common law is law that's made by a court. And
No, common law is
the
a
people
law.
can't control the courts
Common law-
directly. The
common law is
judges
a
are
law.
supposed to be independent. No, that's not what common law
Article
means.
5.
Common law means the law that is not statutory.
Yeah, we don't want statutory. We want to move away from statutory.
It's law that is passed by courts. Okay? And you have to understand that common law
But
doesn't
the
mean.
courts, and you're on a good point, Dave, because the courts uphold the status quo, okay? That's what they do, they uphold, until the
Yeah,
people
they
put,
work
until
on
the
the
people put
statute.
enough pressure, then the courts start changing, okay? Just like with civil rights, with women's rights, with all those
Right.
things. All the times they ruled in favor, I mean, there wasn't one court case that won on civil rights and it fixed everything. I mean, it took case
Right,
after
right.
case after case. So like in Kathie's case with the Medina charter and Fulton and Athens getting kicked off, the best thing we could do is next year have 10 counties proposing charters.
Okay. Could the coalition, like Kathie's coalition, could she sue the state? Because they're a corporation, they're not.
Well, that's what Broadview Heights is doing. We're suing the state.
Okay.
Right,
I'm just trying to get a.
right. Yeah, no, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Linda?
I wanted to ask Gerald if you've gotten involved with people in the academic community who test air quality and, you know, health issues, and if you've been able to bring people like policy matters into this, what's happening in your neighborhood, so you have some support.
Well, with the website, we reach a lot of people, and therefore we got a lot of power, and it controls a lot of media. So we immediately contacted the United States EPA and the Ohio EPA. And because of the fact we have so many people watching this piece, they don't want to get stuck with it. So the US EPA actually bought the equipment to give to Ohio to conduct a test. So what they're doing right now is we've done one test, which said that there's no asbestos, but there's still 2 more tests outside, and then they're gonna do inside testing of the people's houses. So a lot of people are watching it. The whole world is watching at Noble Road dump site. We're just hoping that nobody gets killed or dies from what they're breathing.
Do you know who the owner is?
Arco is the company.
That's a national company. Right? So
They've got a
maybe-
lot of money. If you follow the money, and all this stuff you guys are talking about, just follow the money. That's what my mentor, when I first came
Somebody
into
had to
this,
sign that permit for them and say, put that right where I want it.
Mr.
Put-
Robert-
It had some options.
Mr.
They
Woodman-
chose to put it there
Robert
for a
Woodman
reason.
from Lakewood.
Somebody allowed that to happen. That's what you need to be protesting. Out on Facebook, man. You need to physically be there. Somebody allowed that to happen in that neighborhood.
well, we're gonna get to that.
All right?
My
So
mentor
we need to find
said,
out who allowed this to happen. And I seen this ain't the first time this has happened.
my mentor, Mr. Robert Woodman, said, follow the dollar.
Well, bottom line, what he said is, it happened. Somebody allowed this
people
to
that,
happen.
people actually make
All
this
right,
happen
get the voice
are our
out.
mayor and our city
Certain
council.
communities will allow this to happen. It
Our
happened
mayor,
there.
We can't,
our mayor and city council,
person
Never
talk at a
happened.
time, please.
our mayor and city council,
Poor
are the people that
leadership.
made this happen. And that's what all the
That's what you
Portman and all these senators and Marcia Fudge, they're all trying to, it's like a hot potato, they want to get out of their hands, and they're all blaming the people who actually voted on it. And they're probably right, because city council did vote unanimously to have this happen without talking to the people, and the mayor voted unanimously to
How
make
does
it
these
happen.
things happen?
That's right.
Money, money,
And
dollars.
you need to go to your city council meetings, you need to be vigilant, you need to go to township trustees
Yeah,
meetings.
and-
Then you know what's going on.
Okay. How about you have?
I was just gonna ask, do you know what all they're testing for? Was it only asbestos, or I'm sure, did they have a whole
We're starting with
list of-
asbestos, because that's the first thing we brought up. But there's also lead. And with this stuff, they're tearing down old houses.
Oh.
Houses have been around for a long time. So we know that stuff is in that stuff they're tearing down. And I've gone to enough of those seminars that they have for US EPA to know that they've got stuff over.
So as I understand it, so if you open up a dump, you have to get licensed by either the local community or the local county or US EPA. I think they've opened this up as a recycling center for construction and demolition debris, and there are no regulations around regulating recycling centers.
You can open up a recycling center in your front yard. You can start piling stuff there. You say that is a recycling place. There are no laws in the state of Ohio to stop you from doing that.
So they're dumping like appliances, like refrigerators?
No, that stuff is, that's all, that metal stuff is, that's stuff that they take out. When they tear down the houses, they take out stuff that they can sell.
It's
So-
construction debris?
Yes.
So one of the ironies is that so the county, look, Cleveland's had this terrible, foreclosure crisis. We've got all these vacant abandoned houses. And the county actually just gave like $10 million to communities to do demolition. One of the things that the contractors for a lot of these construction companies are trying to put their stuff over to Arco, the Arco site in East Cleveland, because it's so cost effective compared to other places they have to go take it. So there's I think the county stopped at or said you can't go there right now, but I think but there's no legal basis for them to say, no, you can't do that.
Well, actually, we had 2 dumps. The Eddy Road dump was also another dump that was on TV where they came in and raided that place. At our,
Eddie and Hayden.
Eddie.